Hi everyone, Timothy Ferris here with a few words about objectivity. When I got out of school, my first couple of jobs were working in New York City as a journalist, a daily reporter of events in which I went to see things and talk to people myself and try to assemble as best I could an accurate account of what had developed in that day, which is the meaning of the term journalist in its French origins. And we young journalists were aware that intellectuals, European professors mostly French, had cautioned us that objectivity was a myth. There was no such thing as pure or absolute objectivity. We were all chasing a chimera of some sort, an imaginary goal of perfection. And that critique is true. There is no such thing as absolute or pure objectivity, but it's also trivial. There is no such thing as an absolute or pure anything. But we didn't know that at the time, so we struggled with the idea that somehow what we were trying to do in being fair and impartial was intellectually disreputable. It's taken decades of study for me to come to the point that I feel that I might be able to say something useful on this subject, and it is this: that for one strain of human thought, what matters is subjectivity. The deep feelings, the emotions, the perspective of the individual. This was the basis of Romanticism, which produced some good literature but remained hostile toward science and technology and business, by the way, all of which were looked down upon by the Romantics. And it's the basis of the postmodernist movements that one sees today, which ultimately deny the objective reality of everything, thus making it impossible to critique or, for that matter, support their claims on any objective basis. Those upholding a romantic, subjective view of the world could, for some decades, claim that they had support even from hard physical sciences. After all, didn't the theory of relativity tell us that everything's relative? And doesn't quantum uncertainty mean that each of us at the roots of reality has his or her own equally valid set of truths? Well, in a word, no. Science never said anything of this sort. Relativity theory does not champion, or in the language of postmodernism, valorize subjective views. It's just the opposite. Relativity shows that different subjective views, one observer at one point saying that A happened before B, while another observer says, no, gee, it looked to me like B happened before A, that all of these subjective views can be subsumed into an objective scientific account provided through the theory of relativity. Quantum mechanics similarly has certainly some intellectual puzzlements to it, and we've tried to talk about a few of them in these lectures. But in the end, the outcome of quantum processes is objectively valid and the same for all observers. The famous puzzlements of quantum mechanics have to do with reconciling the way it works to habitual ways that we have in the past viewed reality, and those are very interesting subjects, but they don't come down stumping for a subjective view of the world. And the world we live in has changed in some important ways since the heyday of European intellectuals claiming that this or that approach to objective truth was somehow invalid. Today, science and technology generate the majority of human wealth, and these fields are based on the existence of objective reality. And indeed, these increasingly irrational and non-fact-based claims on the part of the ideological left and the ideological right, politically speaking, look like last-ditch rearguard attempts to combat the rising authority of science as reflected in technology. You can get on a airline flight believing in your cherished subjective personal beliefs that your given ethnic and racial group has access to certain facts that no one else can understand. But you certainly wouldn't want to get on an airplane that had been designed according to those specifications, because it wouldn't fly very far. Technology constantly underscores the validity of the objective claims of science. So it is true that there will never be some ultimate objectivity that is perfect and flawless because, as I said at the outset, nothing perfect or flawless exists. But any world that, having discovered science, then decides for whatever reason to fall back into tribalism, romanticism, egoism, all of the subjective features that loomed larger in pre-scientific cultures, will also find itself returning to pre-scientific, pre-technological standards of wealth, health, and happiness. Back to an era when very few people had any money, the rate of growth was very slow, half of the population was dead by age 30, and hardly anybody would have described him or herself as happy. I don't think humanity will make that choice. I think we'll continue to muddle along the way we young journalists did when I was first starting out, understanding that we don't know everything, that maybe we don't even know enough to be adequate to the story that we're trying to cover, but struggling to keep learning, to understand things a little better, and in the meantime, to be decent and fair to those we encounter and those that we hope will read our imperfect writings. Thanks for listening. See you next time.